G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. Listeners, we're in for a real treat today. Graeme Cowan is someone that is very well known on the speaking circuit. If you're in a corporate role, you may have even heard Graeme speak at one of your gigs, and you would have got a lot out of it because not only is he an excellent speaker, an author, but a real authority in this space of wellness, resilience, and especially in and around work as well, which we want to unpack today. The reason I brought Graeme in, yes, full disclosure, you are a wonderful client, so we're going to put that on the table. And I'm I'm in such a fortunate position to have worked with you in that context. But to see what you're doing from the stage and beyond, I think is incredible. And listeners, I'm not tone deaf. Right now, 13 interest rate rises. There's potentially talk about more rate rises throughout this year as well, which scares the life out of a lot of people that have existing mortgages, but also people that are trying to get in. That's one. But there's also this, what I call wealth being. So financial wellness is massive, and people that are just feeling like they're earning money, there's little left over, but we're still telling people to buy investment properties. I'm not being tone deaf. All I'm trying to say is, hey, look, there's a percentage of the market that are trying to get in to improve their long-term financial position, but you can't see the pain because you're going through, like you can't see the woods, what is it, the trees.
Woods for the tree.
There we go. Because you're in such pain at the moment. So I guess we want to unpack this a little bit more with yourself, Graeme. So thank you for being so generous with your time. But just talking about it, and I guess you've got a huge amount of empathy and experience having been down this path. And for those that maybe don't know, I mean, you've worked corporate background, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, for example, went through a real rough patch where, I mean, as you've described it, it's a depression that lasted 5 years. Mm. That's not normal.
It was a really, really rough time. And to be honest, I never thought that I would come out of it. I just was, I lost my job, my marriage broke down. I had to go and live with my parents. And they were a tremendous support. I, quite honestly don't think I would have made it without them. It was... I tried everything, drugs, shock therapy, psychologists, the works. And it was really probably just a combination of things that led me back from the brink, as I talk about. So it was committing to walking and exercise every day. It was reconnecting with family and friends that I'd isolated myself from. It was also... after I started to come back a bit, I then was able to get into meditation, and that's become a really core ritual of mine. Really keeps me in the green zone. And then, I guess the final part was deciding to write my book, Back from the Brink. Yeah, and that was it was really, I guess, trying to find some sort of purpose out of having gone through that really tough time. And I interviewed a range of people from, well-known people to everyday people, and just, followed their path, see what they learnt, see what they would do differently if they had their chance. And that then evolved when the books happened to media and then being asked to speak. First of all, in country areas where there's very little support out there. But I'd come from the corporate world, as you mentioned. Yeah. And so... when I first approached them, they said, "Oh, there's no issues here. Everything's fine." This is probably about 10 years ago now. Yeah. But
you're ahead of your time then, that's for sure. Now they can't get enough of you.
Yeah. But certainly, the last 5 years, it's just become really, really dramatic. And COVID contributed to that. And, as we were talking just before we came on air, there's real issues with young people. People from 18 to 24 are the loneliest of all age groups. They also have the greatest incidence of anxiety and depression. So this isn't just issues for us at work. It's also our kids. Our kids coming through are not in great shape.
Yeah. Why is that? I mean, 18 to 24, that should be some of the best years. I mean, I look back and they're probably the best years of my life. Not that I don't love life now, but fun, world's at your feet, travel. I guess maybe travel came off the cards for them during COVID. I don't know, socializing, and you're saying they're the loneliest? I mean, people might be quick to point at, say, social media, but we're talking about things that are far bigger than this, aren't we?
Oh, very much so. And COVID played a massive issue in this. You think of, my experience, your experience at that age, you're going to university, you're going
Parties.
partying, you were meeting people that came from different lifestyles and areas. It was lots of adventure. But this group, and I know a couple of family members that are in this sort of cohort, they didn't go to university. It was all done remotely. And so they didn't have the opportunity to connect, one-on-one. They saw people through a Zoom screen, but it's just not the same. And at that period of your life, it's your friends that are even more important than your family, just in terms of finding your way in the world. And that they went through a really tough time with COVID, and it's still playing out. We've still got a long way to go on this journey.
I agree. And you take that cohort, you go up a little bit more in age, and we saw marriages that were breaking down, obviously spending that much time together. And that went across like multiple age, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, for example. We're seeing that impact as well. That then has its own implications financially as well. People start again. I mean, that would have been your scenario as well, where if you lost your marriage, lost your job, financially, you got to start all over again, don't you?
100%. Luckily, I had income protection insurance, and so that made a big difference. And so, I'm always keen to advocate that, you've got to cover your risks as well as your upside sort of thing. But it is starting again, and it can be, a bit scary. But I now have a really fantastic life, and the irony is, I don't think I would have had that if I hadn't gone through that, really bad depressive time, because I was forced to really think about, what's important, what's my priorities, and really redesign my life so that it's first and foremost about well-being, but also making an impact as well.
I mean, there's groups like the Men's Table, which they talk a lot about men's, men have got a high rate of suicide, for example. I read the stats around it. I mean, in Australia, over 3,000 people died of suicide in 2022. That's some staggering numbers here. 15th, suicides are 15th leading cause of death, for example, as well. These are some damning numbers. And when we go back and we retrace the roots or the origins about what's led them down this path of feeling helpless or hopeless, finances kind of ranks up there as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, financial stress, I think still it's changing, I think, somewhat, but still men largely feel that they're responsible for, the financial situation. That's not always the case now, but for many men, it was certainly for me, that was
it's
the
a sense of self,
situation.
though, isn't it? Even if someone says, hey, look, your partner's 50% contributing to the income, you still feel like, I don't know, DNA, I still need to be the man of the house or bring home the bacon as well.
Yeah, it is. And there's been lots of, financial stress, as you mentioned in your intro, rising mortgage rates, rents are rising. And so, you really have to work and be disciplined about staying well. And, I went to really, really dark places, and I don't want to ever go there again, which is why, I'm very disciplined about, my meditation, my stretching, my exercise, but also more importantly, connecting with others in a really great way. You mentioned Men's Table, and I think that's a great initiative. There's the Men's Shed, which is for older people, but there's many ways to have a version of a Men's Shed. For example, I've been in a share investing group for 25 years.
Yeah, right.
And there's been 13 guys in there, and it's our Men's Shed.
Yeah.
Every month we go to someone's house, but it's more about camaraderie. At the end, we sort of have a bit of a chat about what we're going to buy and sell and all that sort of stuff. But it is building that. And after my breakdown as well, I just became really determined to have these occasions when I would be able to build strong relationships with other men as well. Yeah. So every Sunday morning I meet two friends at Curl. We go for a bit of a walk down to Manly, have a breakfast together. And it's mainly just a great day out. But there's been time over those 10 years we've been doing it when each of us has gone through, a bit of a crisis, be it, financially or family or health, all those things. And then on Thursday morning, funnily enough, I used to meet with a guy who lived near me in Gordon, but he's now moved down to Vincentia. So we often have a virtual walk and talk. So we walk, but we have our AirPods on and talk for 40 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So.
Do you think women are better at this than men?
Oh, much better. Much better.
Why do you think that? I've got my own thoughts, but I'm very curious to hear yours.
I think there's a little bit of the history that, not so long back, men went to work, women stayed at home. They had to build connections with those around them. But I think they are just better at relationships. I'm not saying it's perfect for them, but they as a group, are better than men. And a lot of men can become very isolated. That they have a lot of their relationships through work.
Absolutely.
A lot through work. So if they suddenly lose their job, they're in a terrible situation. Or if they suddenly go through a separation or divorce, they find out that the wife was the social secretary. I'll often call that social secretary. Yeah. So they make the effort, and it's incredibly important for men to build those relationships. And you've got to really have three elements to that. You've got to have it that it's a positive experience. Second thing, you've got to do it consistently. You can't do it once a year. And then the third thing is you've got to be able to be vulnerable with, that person. If you're going through difficult times, be able to share that. And typically, and I was very much in this situation, I'd keep it to myself. I should be able to work this out. But, sharing it, they say, a problem shared is a problem halved, and it's very much the case. And so those relationships, in fact, the longest wellbeing study ever done is called the Harvard Human Development Program. It's been going for 70 plus years. And they found the best predictor of a long life, a happy life, an affluent life are those that have caring and supportive relationships around them. Right. So for men, it's a smart thing to do to invest time to build those relationships.
Yeah. It's easy, I think. I'm in the midst of very small kids, for example, so to kind of get out and go, hey, look, I'm going to spend some time with the guys, and that usually can involve, getting on the beers, for example. It's like, that's not healthy, right? But it's the only way you can connect. So and then there's a bit of bravado there. But I'm very fortunate. Like, I've got a couple of lads, we call it lads and dads. And what you're saying is their consistency. It's probably like once a month, and someone's got to take the initiative. And I think that's the other part is alpha males.
Yep.
I'm not. Who's going to lead, right? a clash of the egos there. But then what I found is consistency, and you touched on that. My mate Matt and I, we worked out that we had dinner together more than we had with our own wives. But it's also like, you call it like the 50 and then 100-hour rule. And I feel like once we clicked over a certain time spent together, you just went so deep. It wasn't this, hey, how you going? Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, everything's great. You actually went very, very deep. And a couple of us now get together. It's like the conversation isn't superficial. This is a safe space.
Yeah.
And we can actually go deep, be vulnerable with each other.
Yeah.
And we know that it's not going anywhere either, which I think is another part to go, hey, a bit of the bro code.
Definitely.
That it's like whatever stays, gets said here stays here as well. And you need to find that. You need to find that tribe. And again, maybe COVID, people have moved to different areas. You got to restart social networks. And rebuild those as well. And you talk about the loneliness for younger people. Yeah, I see that. I'm like, they've got so used to sitting at home. Like, what did you do on the weekend? I just chilled out at home. I'm like, oh, it's a different time that we're in, isn't it?
It is. And I think, there are some solutions. If you think about things that you're passionate about, and that could be, just speaking of men, it could be football, it could be fishing, it could be exercise, it could be going to the gym, whatever. But, there's websites that can help you find people with those interests in your area. Bushwalking, for example. And that's half the battle. If you're doing something that you enjoy anyway, it just allows you to have those deeper relationships and to be less superficial.
Yeah, thanks. Going back to our very start around financial well-being, I call it wealth being, for example. But yeah, what I say to a lot of people is the state of wallet equals the state of mind. We had a chat before. You asked how we're doing. I said, we're super busy from a work perspective. That's interesting, like 13 rate rises still doesn't stop the market. I'm like, no, people are just banging down the door to get into the market. There's no certainty when they're renting because the rent just keep going up, for example. But then what sits in the background is the lack of wage increases. So, you know, it's scaled paying someone on 200, 300 grand versus someone on 80, 90 grand. They're living according to those means, for example, it's scaled paying. So you mentioned before when you're doing talks with corporate, that financial uncertainty or issues kind of pop up in the top three. Take us through a little bit of that work that you do there.
Yeah, well, it's just helping people to realise where they are. And so my mantra in those keynotes are that self-care isn't selfish. You know, if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of other people. And
which is contrary, because when you've got a tight budget, the first thing that usually come off is anything around yourself.
yeah, but it doesn't have to be a financial thing. It could be just committing to walking or, you know, fishing or, you know, just catching up and exercising that doesn't cost any money. So, you know, I think that we often let it go. You know, people often say that I don't have any me time for sorting it out. And so I talk about the, you know, three areas of our well-being and resilience. The first one is vitality, which is our physical health. You know, we move well, eat well, rest well. Next one is intimacy, our emotional well-being. So that's strong relationships, you know, at work and at home. And as I said, you know, relationships, strong, caring, supportive relationships are the best predictor of a very, very happy and successful life. And the third element is prosperity. And by that I mean an abundance mindset, that a lot of people get it from a sense of purpose about for the work they do. They realise the benefits they're providing to other people. Some people also get it from volunteering for a charity or a school or a sports team. And those three things, vitality, intimacy, prosperity, is VIP. And so my message is that we should act like a VIP and each day top up each of those three glasses of well-being, because you can't be full on one, empty on another one. It has to be, it's like a three-legged stool. If one of them is compromised, you've got the chance of falling over. So all those three areas are what we need to work on. And, you know, another concept I talk about is the moodometer. And when we're in the green zone, and this is some Harvard Business Review research, we're 31% more productive, 37% more influential, and 300% more creative. Wow. Now, these are all really, really valuable attributes, you know, to be successful in today's workplace. Yeah. And so that's why self-care isn't selfish.
Yeah, well said, well said. And when you're talking these keynotes, you're talking about resilience as a concept, for example. Is this something where people think, hey, I've already got a level of resilience and how do I add to it? Or is this like a muscle that has to be kind of built up over time? How do people scale their level of resilience as well? Like, take us through, because it feels like everyone can understand the concept but doesn't know really how to measure their level of resilience.
I've got a self-care snapshot, and it's a 15-point questionnaire under those three categories: vitality, intimacy, prosperity. Okay. And what I endeavour to do is to get people to identify, you know, what are their mood vampires? What are the things that are taking them down the moodometer? And what little thing can they do, start with, and do consistently every day, which over time can have really remarkable results. It's not big changes that lead to results. It's consistent little things, because that then sticks. And if we stick one healthy habit, it massively increases the chance we'll do a second one and a third one following that. So there is the individual side of things, but I also talk very much about team care and psychological safety, because we are not islands. You know, in teams can be the best things, the healthiest things. You know, if you ask people, you know, to reflect on the best team they've been on, and I do this when I survey people as well, give them a whole bunch of attributes, and usually the top three are that we had each other's back, we enjoyed working together, and we cared about each other. These are the foundations for really, really great teams. And building psychological safety means that people feel involved in the decision making. It means that they can be their authentic self. It means that they can try new things and know that if it doesn't work out, we'll learn quickly and move on. Yeah. when you're in those teams, they are fantastic. They really are. And, people are yearning for those teams now.
Yeah. I mean, we use a lot of the examples around sporting teams. It's probably the great way to look at teams. And I thought, analogy being Sydney-based, we also look at the football teams, go, who's the top four, who's the bottom four, what are they doing versus what are they doing? And so it's very clear to see. I mean, having each other's back, you can see it. United, we stand, divided we fall. So the poor performing teams are constantly finger pointing and blaming. It's the coach, it's the players, it's the support staff, for example. And there's not that accountability. And it's like, there's no wonder that they're not doing well versus the top teams that mistakes happen and they just go, yep, get on with it, for example, as well, right?
Yeah. There was something I was just reading in the paper this morning, and it was about South losing their coach. One out of 7. And they're talking about bringing back Wayne Bennett. And, he's quite an enigma because he never seems to talk much. He always looks a bit grumpy.
Yeah.
But the players absolutely love him.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely
I'm
love
with you.
him.
Yeah, he blows my mind.
You've got to look at his results. It's
everywhere he goes.
Everywhere he goes. And that really shows you that it's not just a fluke of having the right people in the right place, that he's able to create a unique environment to achieve just great results.
Absolutely. Coming back here, we'll talk about that, when things are going wrong, we can tend to spiral. And you kind of just go look at spirals out of control, and you can really zoom in on what's coming off the rails, and it's very hard to, you in that slump for 5 years. So if someone come along and go, hey, perk up, cheer up, it's not that bad, and you're so far down those depths, for example, how do you unravel that, start to come up a little bit more? And again, back from the brink, we'll obviously cover some of this as well. Yeah. What are some of these tips that people have, call from a financial context, call from a well-being, health, VIP context as well? How do people kind of unravel that feeling of like...
The thing is, once you're in the red zone, it can be very, very hard and slow to come out of it. And so, there's certainly things people can do. Of course, get, good professional advice, exercise, try and build relationships, but it's often can be very, very slow. And so it's very, very important to really be your own therapist and know when, your early warning signs are coming through. You might be, waking up more at night. You could be feeling more of, anxiety, that sort of things. And I think one of the best things you can do, and as I said, this is more the green or the orange zone, is learn how to be in the present moment. And there's some great breathing exercise you can do with that. And, one which has been used for centuries, but also used by the Navy SEALs to sleep on a battlefield, is breathing, where they breathe in through their nose for 4, hold for 7 seconds, and then breathe out through the nose for 8 seconds. And I often do this in the seminars. I just take people through that with breathe in for the 4, hold for 7, out for 8. And if you do that for like 3 or 4 rotations, you are in a different space. You're present. And in the present moment, the problems aren't nearly as bad. The problems come when we're fearful of something ahead of us or regretful of something behind us. But as you say, if you can get into that sort of practice of breathing, it only takes a minute, but then to zoom out as well and say, well, in the scheme of things, what I thought is pretty bad, well, I only got to look at the news and see it, Gaza or Ukraine or what have you. It can provide perspective, but, practicing being in the present moment and being able to zoom out is really, a critical part of, staying well and being able to think in the right way.
Yeah, because I feel like people can go, hey, look at Gaza, look at Ukraine, and go, and it's a bit like a sugar hit that, yeah, okay, I'm lucky. And then they're trying to, I don't know, call for the context of our listeners, trying to get into the property market.
Yeah.
And Sydney's the second most expensive property market to Hong Kong. And like, awesome, we're one of the luckiest countries, but I still can't get what I feel is the great Australian dream.
Yeah, definitely.
And it feels like it's slipping away from them, and that hopelessness as well. And I feel like, how does someone play that? You say play the long game a little bit there as well. How does someone go, look, I'm not going to be able to buy tomorrow, but in time I will be able to get into the market.
And it's also just thinking that, maybe I don't start with my purchase in Sydney. Maybe I start in other locations where there's better yields. You can have your properties there. You can get the tax deduction and even move. One of the incredible things about COVID is that
your computer can work from anywhere.
We can work from anywhere.
Yeah.
Literally can. Another example, I know a friend in Sydney who's renting their place out. They live at Clovelly, and with that funds, they're living in Asia, on a beautiful island for a fraction of that rent. And so, it is. And look, I understand that it's so much harder, for young people to buy property now. Like I bought my first property when I was 24. There's no way I could have done that now here in Sydney. But again, I think it is doing the right things for our body and our mind, and that allows us to hopefully identify what could be some options. Because when we're stressed, we think very black and white. It's either I can do this or I can't do that. You can't think. But if you are in a healthier place, you can think of more creative solutions or ask people about more creative solutions.
Is the key then at that point to slow, because you're saying, hey, when you're stressful, black and white thinking, breathing's one technique to come out of that. What are the other ways that you can go, hey, look, to de-stress or just to slow that speeding train of stress down a little bit? What are some other ways that they can intervene?
A lot of people find walking is sensational. The history of walking and the benefits of walking, and you look back at some of our most amazing minds, our regular walkers, Albert Einstein, and they would walk and reflect and do that. And there's definitely something about getting out of four walls and just being amongst nature. I'm fortunate to live in Gordon, right beside the Lane Cove National Park, and when you're down there on the track with your dog, it's different to sitting within four walls. And so it is that balance of making sure that you do things that are good for you.
Yeah, I think everyone's looking for something sexier as an answer, going, give me contrast therapy or sitting infrared sauna, for example, and the answer will come to me. But walking on your two pins, simple but effective.
Very, very effective. And if you like swimming, do swimming. If you like riding, do riding. Yeah. But getting outside is very good for our mood and our mental health.
Someone's got a problem, they want to reach out. There might be, a tag attached to that, or there's a bit of judgment, not only from themselves, but maybe their peers around them. I think what's one of the sayings, it ain't weak to speak. I know you've been involved in Are You OK as well. How are these resources accessible to people that you go, hey, look, there's people that want to help you, but you maybe need to put your hand up as well?
Yeah, well, it is really important to get to the right help. Sometimes that can be a GP, sometimes that can be a psychologist, sometimes that can be a helpline. And there's lots of really fantastic helplines out there, for everything from Lifeline to Men's Line, specific lines for the LGBTQI community, for veterans, domestic violence.
The corporates have EAP, the EAP.
Yeah, lots of organisations have employee assistance programs as well.
Yeah.
So it is important to get that, and it's also important that if you don't connect with one person, if it doesn't seem right, don't stop there. Keep trying to find the right person. It's worth persisting to get the right professional to work with you.
Yeah, nice. And if you're having financial problems, there's financial assistance from banks. They've got lines there. You're not going to jeopardise your financial position. In fact, they often say, reach out earlier before it becomes a problem. We can intervene earlier. It's probably the same thing with a mental as it is with financial help as well. Reach out earlier. We can aid you better rather than things going too far off the path, and then you got less options available to you then as well.
Absolutely, and that's a great development which has only recently come around. It's just fantastic. And there's also groups like Lifeline that offer financial counselling as well.
Yeah, awesome. I want to say thank you very much. I really appreciate, you obviously got a great temperament for this. And when you look back, it's maybe hard to go, you had to go through those years to now connect the dots and to get you to where you are. But the message that you got obviously resonates with a lot of people, especially in a time like this, isn't it, Graeme, where you're probably doing corporates and they're working longer hours, stronger, bigger demands on their time and the time they've got for family or putting tools down as well, working around the clock. And someone like you comes around and says, hey, look, self-care isn't selfish is a message that they need to probably hearing a few times before it really sinks in and goes, yeah, I need to be able to put myself first before I put the gas mask on others.
Very much so.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Listeners, I hope you really enjoyed it. It's been a real treat to have Graeme here and share with us what you do professionally on the speaking circuit. So, Graeme, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Aaron.
Yeah. If you found this helpful, or if you know someone that's struggling a little bit and you don't know exactly how to help them out, maybe this episode is something that you can just share them and say, look, maybe it's something that can, from someone else who's a trained professional, can just get you back on the path a little bit. And if you are suffering in silence, we say don't. Put your hand up, ask for some help. No judgment as well. Graeme, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
Talk to you soon. Thanks.